right, so good morning, everybody, and welcome back, and a happy new year in 2024 to all of you. After over 400 programs at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants in 2023, we have been waiting far too long to get back into business, and I'm so excited you're joining us today, both live on YouTube in 3 weeks, in 3 years, whenever you're tuning into this program, to join us as we continue to showcase the coolest scientists, explorers, conservationists, innovators around planet Earth. Now, I say innovators very deliberately because we are joined back live again with the amazing folks at the Rito Hall Foundation and their Ingenious Plus Innovation Challenge. We've been doing broadcasts with them for 3-4 years now, featuring some of the coolest stories of making Canada and the world a better place that the world has to offer. And so I'm going to turn you over to Jill in just a minute from the Rito Hall Foundation to explain a little bit more about the amazing innovation challenge and some opportunities for students coming up in February, very, very soon from now. But first, I'm going to play a little bit of a primer video, get you guys excited and dive in with that. So stay tuned and let's roll with this thing. Here we are.
I want to see myself a part of the solutions instead of sitting back waiting for other people to get there.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome. I am Jill Clark with the Rito Hall Foundation, and we are very pleased to be bringing you the 3rd annual Ingenious Plus Youth Innovation Challenge. So we are very lucky to have some incredible speakers with us here today, a Governor General's Innovation Award winner, as well as an Ingenious Plus National winner. Could not be more excited, and we will get to them in just a minute. I want to talk first about Ingenious Plus, Canada's Youth Innovation Challenge. So if you are passionate about generating solutions to community, Canadian, and global challenges, Ingenious Plus gives youth in Canada aged 14 to 18 the opportunity to innovate for good. So we hear this word innovation tossed around a lot, but what does it actually mean? Innovation to us is about doing something better to make an impact. This includes improving on a product, service, or process, or creating something completely new that solves a problem or simply makes the world a better place. Now, as we saw in the video, there are 5 categories that you can tackle to make the world better through innovation. We have community and civic engagement, climate change and the environment, equity and inclusion, health and well-being, and technology and entrepreneurship. So you can see there are no shortage of ways to innovate and no limits to the problems that we can solve. Now, often we think that innovation is technical, scientific, mathematical, and yes, that's true, but innovation is also social, community-minded, entrepreneurial, health-focused, and compassionate. So you don't have to be a genius in engineering, you just have to want to improve the world around you. And there's no need to go it alone. Our innovators all stress the importance of teamwork and collaboration. So grab some friends, put your heads together, and challenge each other to do something great. This challenge invites you to present your innovation projects and ideas. This is your chance to showcase your innovation in an exceptional network of Canada's most successful innovators, one of whom is here with us today. You will have the chance to win entry into this network and also a chance to receive up to $10,000. Maybe I should have mentioned that earlier. Kind of a big deal. Submissions are open as of today, and they will close February 22nd, 2024. So the time to start is now. All the information you need to apply and to potentially receive up to $10,000 are on our website at ingeniusplus.ca. So please check us out. And the next great Canadian innovator could be you. So without further ado, let's invite our first guest speaker to join us and to share her innovation story. So I am talking about Errita Xu, national winner of the Ingenious Plus Challenge of 2023 in her category of climate change and the environment. So recognition of the environmental and physical implication caused by the widespread use of road salts has sparked urgency among scientists and governments globally. Upon testing beet, corn, and even grape skin de-icing treatments, Errita's innovation pinpoints the best composition of agro-based de-icers after experimentally assessing their de-icing abilities, environmental longevity, and social feasibility in comparison to traditional road salts. Now, that's way more than I could ever explain. So I would love Errita to come and join us so that she can tell us more about her innovation. Hey, Errita, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm so happy that you're here with us. Thank you so much. I know you're very, very busy, but we would love to hear more about your agro-based de-icers. And I know, especially where I am right now, it's very chilly, starting to get very icy. So this is a very timely conversation for us to have. So give us your elevator pitch. Tell us about your innovation.
Yeah, of course. So growing up in Canada, salting winter roads is an unquestioned routine. But when I came across an article of scientists using fermented food waste to mitigate the amount of salt that we need to use and thus its environmental impact, I was completely fascinated because it wasn't something that I heard about earlier. So that's what really sparked the idea. And I ended up going into different journals to see if this was really something that is a really big topic. And I found that a lot of different food products have been tested, from like coffee to cheese to grape skin, beet, and corn, which were the ones I tested. It really seemed like the world was my oyster. But at the same time, a lot of these papers didn't do a side-by-side comparison of different food products, which really left me wondering which one was exactly the best. So a lot of papers be like, this is road salt and this is another food product. Clearly, the other food product is better. And a completely other article is going to say that their food product is better. So what really my study was looking at is the side-by-side comparison of the most research agro-based de-icers, beet, corn, and grape skin, and I test its ice melting abilities and environmental impact on vegetation to really see if they are environmentally sustainable. And then I am continuing my studies this year, where I'm looking at, again, de-icing abilities, environmental impact on fresh water this time, testing water fleas, and the physical impact on metal.
That's incredible. And as you say, living in Canada, this is a reality for us every single year. And, as we continue to face climate change, this is going to be something that's more and more important. So it's incredible work that you're doing. So let me ask, as our Ingenious Plus national winner of 2023, tell me a little bit about your decision to submit your project to Ingenious Plus. Had you been just at the beginning? Had you been working on de-icers for a while? Where were you in your journey when Ingenious Plus came into the picture?
Yeah, so I started this project October of last year, October 2022, and I started my experimentation around January, exactly a year ago. And again, the Genius Plus deadline, I'm pretty sure, was around February as well last year. So I already had most of my data collected. I had my report was almost done by that point, and I was also submitting this project to science fairs at the time. So I had a lot of responses already compiled. I knew really what my purpose for the project was. And Ingenious Plus really stood out to me because I looked at the people who submitted last year and I saw a few articles about them. And I was like, this is so cool. They are doing incredible things, and clearly earning the money, but also the networking opportunities were invaluable for them, and I'm sure it would have been invaluable for me. I also knew that I wanted to continue my research with agro-based de-icers either way, and this was really just a launch pad for me to further scale this project. So currently I am in AP research, where I am continuing my studies as well. When I was doing my studies, I obviously had a lot of different obstacles. I had new ideas, and that is all being leveraged to this year's experiments, which I'm starting within the next 2 weeks, which is really cool as well. But really, yeah, just the opportunity to network with others, the opportunity to really gain valuable resources that I'm able to leverage into my experimentation now.
Yeah, we're pretty jazzed about our network of not only mentors, but also kind of the growing network of Ingenious Plus winners. You are in very, very good company with some of our other regional and national winners. It's a great, great group of people. So what would you say that Ingenious Plus has changed for you? What does it mean to be a national winner for your research, for your progress, for just the way that you're kind of advancing with this project?
Yeah, I think like many of the other national winners, I didn't expect anything going into submitting my project. So it was really a confidence booster for me and a realization that, wow, I can actually make an impact with science. Because I've always been drawn to science, to STEM, to understanding the foundations of our world, and that was something that really drove me to doing this project in the first place. But what Ingenious really emphasizes is not only for me to innovate and discover, but to find ways that those discoveries can create a tangible impact in the real world. And also being a scientist, it's often pretty isolating to be in the lab every single day and to be confined by um, journal articles and the data that you collect. So this was really a stepping stone for me to be like, oh yeah, I can actually create a social impact with my scientific discoveries. And that's really something that I wanted to do.
That's awesome. I love your emphasis on this word impact. And that's something that Ingenious Plus is all about, is just creating an impact, just making a change, doing something to make our world around us a little bit better. Now, you won for the climate change and the environment category. So tell me, what kind of motivates you to be working on climate change and the environment? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, something that is really important to me is just nature. I grew up traveling on the outskirts of Toronto every single summer, doing sports outdoors, spending time outdoors, living beside the Don Trail. And that was something that was really, really important to me. My grandparents had a garden. My family has a really big garden even now. And that's just something that really means a lot to me. But obviously, growing up in the bustling city of Toronto as well, I've been exposed to the environmental implications of pollution, of consumption, of urban sprawl. And those were all problems that really hit home to me, especially going into high school when I started to take more senior science courses, started to understand the world a bit more. So that was really what drives me to conduct scientific sustainability research. And I guess specifically for this project, finding and reflecting on the challenges experienced within my own community and finding ways to specifically address it. Not only do I wish to connect with labs at the University of Toronto to understand if my experimentations are robust enough, but I also seek to engage with the voices around me within my very own neighborhood, whether attending like science fairs or just mere conversations. Those perspectives have been really integral to what I do with my research and what I do with my agri-based de-icers, understanding these are what people really want to find within a de-icer, and how can I develop concentrations that really address it.
That's so cool. I love how you kind of start on this very small scale of your community, your grandparents' backyard, the people who love the Don Trail, the people who love, being in nature around a big city. And now this is spreading onto a national scale. So it's so cool that you can start with community and it can grow outwards into something that is just so making so much of a bigger impact. I think that's so awesome. Okay. So if I am someone who maybe has an idea, or I'm kind of working down the road of my innovation journey, and I know that I have a month or so before the Ingenious Plus deadline, what kind of words of encouragement would you give to me or other young people who are looking to maybe submit but don't really know, don't necessarily have the confidence yet that you do? How would you encourage me to get involved with Ingenious Plus?
Yeah, 100% just go for it, because you don't know what the results will be if you don't try in the first place. And I think that's something that I really wanted to do when I first applied as well. I didn't think I would win. My report wasn't fully completed yet. I still had a few results to gather. So I was like, oh, maybe they won't really think that it works because I don't have the data for that yet. But it all works out at the end. And I think something really great about the application process as well is that it walks you through parts of what makes an innovation and what exactly is the impact that you want to create with your innovation. And those were questions that really helped me reflect on my project, that really helped me reflect on what I want to do for the next year with the prize money and networking opportunities, etc. So 100% just go for it. You don't know until you try, and just do something that you're super passionate about, because that is what really will shine through when you write your responses to the questions.
All right, I'm sold. I'm going to do it. You really, you gave a good pitch there for Ingenious Plus. So thank you so much for being such a great ambassador to the program. We can't wait to see what you do next. We are just completely impressed and in awe of all of the progress that you've made and continue to make. So Errita, thank you so much for being here with us. We'll let you get back to the lab, back to the ice, and we will be in touch soon. You're not getting away from us anytime soon. So thanks a lot, Errita.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
Take care. Okay. All right. I'm feeling pretty jazzed about this whole thing. Speaking to someone like Errita, who is, in kind of the earlier stages of her innovation journey and yet has so much passion and so much drive, is so inspiring. I would like to turn now to one of our innovators, one of our network of incredible people that we have with Ingenious Plus and who gives so generously of her time. Audra Renyi is with us today, our Governor General's Innovation Award winner from 2017. Audra is incredibly impressive. She co-founded Worldwide Hearing Foundation, which uses affordable technology, market incentives, and rapid training to help underprivileged people affected by hearing loss. She also is the founder and CEO of Ear Access, which is a for-profit social enterprise that aims to cut the price of hearing aids by 75%. Ear Access uses innovative distribution models to ensure hearing aids and related services are available to those who need them the most. Audra, I would love to welcome you and say hello. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. I can hear you very well. Yes.
Lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me to share a little bit about our story.
Yes, we're always so grateful for the generosity that you have with your time with this program. And we know that you are such an inspiration to our growing network of young innovators. So I would love if you could share with us a little bit about Worldwide Hearing, what you're working on, and give us a little inspiration.
Great, sure. So maybe just a little bit of background before I jump into it. So my personal connection to hearing loss is due to my father, my aunt. When my father was 9 and his sister was 7, they grew up in Romania and developed an ear infection, both of them. And that led to permanent severe hearing loss. So it's something that I grew up with in my family. I was keenly aware of how expensive hearing aids were because both my aunt and father had been wearing them for decades. But it's only about 12 years ago when I met the founding chairman of Worldwide Hearing, Claudio Busandri, that I realized how big a problem it was worldwide, how many children in particular are affected, and that what I just thought was a bit of a fluke in my family, something kind of an oddity that had happened, is actually a very widespread issue around the world. And also there's a huge lack of access to hearing aids, to rehabilitation. So that's how I got involved just over 12 years ago in hearing loss. Prior to that, I had studied in finance. I worked as an investment banker in New York. I had spent 2 years in Africa volunteering with different NGOs like Doctors Without Borders and in places like Chad and Kenya and Rwanda. So, but it's only really when I got involved with hearing loss that I would say I found my passion in life and what is my driving force in terms of having impact. So let me start with a quote by Helen Keller, whom you might know, was both deaf and blind. And she said that blindness separates us from things. Deafness separates us from people. Hearing loss is really about connecting with others. And I just want to tell you briefly about Claudio's story. So Claudio, when he was 5 years old and had just started grade 1, his teacher, who was a nun, told Claudio's mother, "I'm going to commit a mortal sin." So his mother said, "What do you mean a mortal sin?" She said, "Claudio is bright, but he's failing grade 1. So I'm gonna fake his grades so he can get into grade 2. But I think he's got a hearing problem, and I'd like you to get him tested at the hospital." So Claudia's mother gets her kid tested at the hospital and discovers that her son is profoundly hard of hearing. And by the way, it's quite typical that parents don't pick up on it because they have special communication with their children that sometimes, is not oral or has different ways of communicating, so they don't pick up on their child's hearing loss. So following that, Claudio got a lot of support in terms of speech therapy, would always sit in the front row of his class, would get support from the teacher. He ended up finishing high school as a top provincial scholar in Quebec. And got into McGill University with a full scholarship in engineering. Well, his first year in engineering, his grades start plummeting. And so the bursary office calls him in and says, "Claudio, what's going on? You're a great student. What's going on?" He said, "Listen, I can't hear a thing. The acoustics are terrible in these rooms. The teachers, they turn their back to you and they mumble when you're writing on the board. I can't follow what's going on." And so they asked him, "What do you need?" And he said, "Well, I need hearing aids." But, this is about 55, 60 years ago. And he said, I can't afford them. His father had passed away when he was 14. His mother was a seamstress, didn't have money to pay for hearing aids. So 2 weeks later, they called him in and gave him a $500 check, which was a lot of money back then, to buy 2 hearing aids. And with that, he graduated with honors, ended up doing an MBA, had a very successful business career, and ended up as the CEO of an $8 billion pharmaceutical distribution company, McKesson, which is one of the largest companies in Canada. But he always says, if that teacher in grade 1 had failed me, my life would have taken a completely different path, and I would immediately have been labeled as a slow learner. And if McGill hadn't given me those hearing aids when I needed them most, again, my life would have taken a different path. So that's the importance of intervention at the right time. So just, quickly, kind of the big numbers. There are 1.5 billion people with hearing loss worldwide. 80% of them live in low and middle income countries, and currently fewer than 9% have access to hearing aids. So why is that? First of all, hearing aids remain unaffordable for most people. So they retail at about an average of $2,000 US per hearing aid. Some go up to $4,000 or more. And yet they cost as little as $50 to manufacture. So there's a huge discrepancy there. And the other issue is the lack of service and logistics. So just not enough audiologists to fit hearing aids. Guatemala is a good example where there's one audiologist for the entire country. Honduras has none. So this is really an issue. So our solution, and I wanted to share a little bit with you the context so you understand kind of the context of the problems and where our solutions came from. Worldwide Hearing is a nonprofit headquartered in Montreal, but that works globally. And we provide hearing aids and hearing care for children and young adults in underserved communities, mostly in low and middle income countries, but also we work in Indigenous communities in Canada. And we do that through a social enterprise model. What does that mean? That means that we find it's important that our partners on the ground in the countries in which we work charge something for the hearing aids. So it's not a pure donation. We ourselves donate the hearing aids, but they in turn charge something to generate revenue for the local partner, but also equally important so that the person receiving the hearing aids has participated in the cost. And we find that when people participate, they tend to use the hearing aids more, they take better care of them. And why our goal really ultimately is about outcomes. How do we have a powerful impact on poverty, mental health, and education for kids? As you can imagine, a child with mild hearing loss is already missing up to 50% of what their teacher says. So as I mentioned, our solution is really focused on affordable, high quality digital hearing aids that we provide at low cost, that we were able to source at low cost and provide to our partners. And the delivery. So we're focused on training what we call audio technicians or sometimes audiometrists, typically women, but also men, from the country in which we work or we support, to be able to do the hearing testing and the hearing aid fitting, and then greatly increasing access. These people are supervised by an audiologist we work with, so that complex cases are referred to the specialist, but that there's the goal is to have a lot more people being able to actually do the testing and the fittings. So I'm going to give you one example. We work currently in 5 countries, Peru, Guatemala, Zimbabwe, the Philippines, and as I mentioned, Indigenous communities in Canada. We've worked in other countries like Vietnam and Jordan in the past. Here's an example, a case study. So this is one of our countries, Peru. And in this country of 34 million people, there are only 14 audiologists, all of them in the capital, in Lima. There's no audiology training program, so all the audiologists are trained abroad. There are ear and hearing care policies, so there's a neonatal screening program for babies, but it's basically not being implemented. There's maybe 2 or 3 hospitals in the whole country, in the capital, that actually implement this program. And then very limited ear and hearing care services outside of Lima. So that's very typical of most countries, and in low and middle income countries. So our partner, which is essentially an NGO we help support and incubate, called Oír para Crecer, was sort of, I would say, unofficially launched in 2016, and then was incorporated a few years later. And it has now become one of the leading pediatric referral centers in Peru. They're currently fitting about 1,000 hearing aids per year, which is a very large number for the space, and working across 5 provinces in Peru. To date, they've fitted over 1,800 hearing aids, 84% of them on children. They've screened, now it's probably, these numbers are maybe a few months old, but they're closer to 90,000 people screened. 96% of them are children that they've screened. So these are a lot of school children, children in communities. And they've also trained 286 people to perform audiometry and otoscopy, so hearing testing of different kinds. That's a very big number. So that's 286 people that received the training to be able to do the testing, and a subset of those to also be able to do hearing aid fitting. So that's the example of one of our partner countries. Some of the key lessons we've learned in that is really to put the patients at the center of the solution. That really means to design all your solutions with the beneficiary in mind. And I think as you're thinking about a lot of the innovations you want to create, it's really important to start with that point. How do you engage with your potential beneficiaries, customers, clients, whatever you want to call them, but basically from the get-go, and to empower local communities through training. Low tech, not all innovations have to be tech innovations. We are actually more in the sort of distribution innovation, the business model innovation, if you will, of how do you get these hearing aids that for all kinds of market reasons are very expensive to end users, but how do you then get them to these low and middle income countries in an affordable way? And so, also another key point is it's not because you don't have the latest equipment that there's not a lot of things you can still do in different ways. So partnerships are key for that as well. And just give you an example, during the COVID pandemic, we started using questionnaires, going back to the basics of, do you have trouble hearing in certain circumstances, et cetera. We digitized those questionnaires, and we screened over 10,000 parents who answered the questionnaire on behalf of their kids. And interestingly, the referral rates were quite similar to those if we had done an in-person test. So, there's a lot of different ways. When you hit a roadblock, like in the pandemic, there's a lot of creative ways you can get around that and still find solutions on the ground. Government partnerships, when you're scaling through government and when you're thinking, for example, doing a public-private partnership, start discussions with government from the beginning, because they're going to need certain evidence-based research that you need to get going from the beginning. So that's another type of learning we've done. And there's lots more, but I'm just highlighting a few here. This is a Maher. This is a boy that I met in Jordan several years ago. And when I met him, he was a very kind of shy, reserved kid. He didn't say much. And he had bilateral hearing loss, and we fitted him with our technicians, fitted him with hearing aids. And when they fitted him, he was kind of smiling. He was hearing for the first time, sounds that he hadn't heard in that way. And we had a chance of meeting him a year later. And what was extraordinary is that it wasn't just that he had better hearing and communication, was doing better in school and all these things. He was a different person. He was smiling and joking and gregarious and the technicians told us that he had a girlfriend now and he had learned to do some artwork. So while he was in school, he was also selling some of his artwork in Amman, the capital, and earning some income for his family. This was, the experience of receiving hearing aids and the rehabilitation with that was transformative. And so this is not just about a little better hearing so you can hear things better. This really changes your life. And that's ultimately why we do what we do. Just briefly, I'm going to touch upon the issues around hearing loss in Canada, in particular in Indigenous communities. So in Inuit communities, in particular in Canada, there are some of the highest rates of hearing loss in the world. So some studies say anywhere between, we don't have great data, but it's anywhere between 20 to 60% of children at any given point in time have some hearing loss. So let's say on average about 30%. It's a real issue. And this compares to about 3% of children in the general Canadian population. And the causes, the number one cause is really chronic otitis media, which is chronic ear infections. So there seems to be a kind of genetic predisposition to ear infections. But once the ear infections are there, it's all the environmental factors that tend to exacerbate them, and things like overcrowding in homes and kids passing infections one to the other, et cetera. So in response to this, Worldwide Hearing has worked with Indigenous partners, mainly in Quebec, Ontario, and also we've done some work in Nunavut, really bringing the model that we've developed in other countries to Canada, because it's just as applicable in areas where there's not enough access to an audiologist. So we really focus on training local people in the community to be able to empowering them to provide the care throughout the year. We provide hearing screenings. And we really find ways to engage with Indigenous partners so they can be the leaders of change. That's the way we work with our partners worldwide. Ultimately, we want to work ourselves out of a job. We want to be in a situation where the partner is taking over because they're empowered to do that, and they're really leading the solution. We're just here as kind of to help get them there and to help with the resources and training to get them there. But our ultimate goal really is for the partner to be leading the way in terms of the change. So hearing loss can be addressed in many positive ways. Really, the goal is to talk more openly about it. It's a problem that it affects a lot of people. And the more we talk about it, the more people will benefit. So let's get talking. And, on that note, I want to sort of wrap up my presentation, but I also want to share maybe just a word or two. Separately, this presentation is very focused around Worldwide Hearing, the nonprofit that I've been running now for almost 12 years. But about a few years ago, I also founded Ear Access, which is a for-profit with a strong social mission to bring hearing aids, affordable hearing aids, to lower and middle-income countries and worldwide. And the goal of Ear Access is we don't necessarily, so the nonprofit is very focused on the poorest of the poor and primarily children. The for-profit is really trying to find a financially sustainable way of providing hearing aids at scale. So, people who can't afford $2,000 but might be able to afford $200 or $300 for a hearing aid. And then finding, economies of scale and different models to be able over time to drive those prices down even further using things like installment payment plans. So just mentioning that because that's, if you have any questions about that, I'm also happy to answer that. But ultimately, why these two vehicles? They address the same broad problem, which is access to hearing aids and services, but they take different approaches. So when you design a solution, you really have to keep in mind who's your target audience, who's your target market, if you want to call it that way, and basically say, okay, not every solution is adapted to every target market. So sometimes you really need to develop different solutions to address different parts of the population or different target audiences. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Audra. I always love hearing the story of Worldwide Hearing. I've heard it a few times, and every time I learn something new or am reminded of just, as you said, the idea of connection. Preventing or correcting hearing loss is all about connection and bringing people together. And I think that's such a great reminder for anybody that's on an innovation journey, is that we're really trying to connect people. We're trying to work as a community, as a country, as a world together to make everything a little bit better. So that's such a great example of that. And that was something that Errita touched on too, is that, she was worried about her community. She was worried about the environmental impacts, on her grandparents' backyard garden. So it can start with something so small, like having a family member that is impacted, and it can grow to something really without any limits. And we see that with Worldwide Hearing. So thank you so much for your incredible work. And again, we're so grateful for all of your generosity. We are in our next cycle for the the Ingenious Plus challenge. So if you were talking to young innovators, people who were maybe at the beginning of their innovation journey, who were looking to get involved with something like Ingenious Plus, what kind of advice do you have for young folks who are just starting out in their journey, want to follow their passion, want to kind of get to the meat of an idea? What kind of words of encouragement would you offer?
Sure. I would say don't wait, just get started. The most important thing is action. Because whatever you think you're going to develop initially ends up iterating, changing 20 times before you get to, the solution that might solve the problem that you're looking to address. So the most important is to start small, but start, and don't wait to think about having that great, brilliant, big idea, because that's often not how innovation happens. It sort of happens with, you start seeing the issues, you're saying, well, that doesn't work, but oh, that's interesting. That person said this about that, and that kind of leads you down the path of innovation. So that's really my biggest advice, is just to start somewhere.
That's great. We have some questions coming in from the folks who are joining us on YouTube, which is so fun. Thank you, everybody who's joining us. And they want to know, I think you had mentioned maybe 12 years, but when exactly was Worldwide Hearing founded? This is a question from Daniela.
Yeah, so it was founded in 2011. We, prior to Worldwide Hearing, so our organization is called Worldwide Hearing Foundation International. Mm-hmm. Prior to Worldwide Hearing Foundation International, there was a Worldwide Hearing Association based out of Geneva, but there was more of a membership-based organization. So it's really when our chairman, Claudio Busandri, joined, that he really started a separate entity called Worldwide Hearing Foundation International, which is headquartered in Canada and is really an operating NGO.
Mm-hmm. And another question from this same group. I know you had mentioned working in Honduras, working in some other Central American countries. What are some of the other countries that you worked in, and maybe what are some countries that you'd like to work in, or that you have plans to? This is a question from Gabriel.
Sure. So we're currently working in Guatemala, Peru, Zimbabwe, the Philippines, and Indigenous communities in Canada. Mm-hmm. In the past, we've also had projects in Jordan, Vietnam, and we had a short pilot in Kenya for one of the projects that we did. Mm-hmm. Going forward, our strategy is to go deeper versus wide, in the sense that we've now built up, help support the infrastructure to scale up hearing aids. So we're really looking in our current partner countries to double, triple our hearing aid provision. But we are right now considering also one or two other sub-Saharan African countries. One of them on our list is Cameroon, but that's still going to be, discussed and confirmed, hopefully in the coming year.
Great. We also have a really interesting question. Would you consider hearing a children's right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I would say access to hearing aids or hearing rehabilitation should be a right of children. Now, there are children that cannot hear, will never be able to benefit from certain rehabilitation because of their type of hearing loss. There's also, the deaf community also has, they have their own representation and their own, way of of being in the world, and you know, and use sign language, for example. So I wouldn't say that hearing, you know, if you can get rehabilitation, if you can get access to interventions, that's definitely something that I personally think is the role of government, and the role of, also it could be private sector and NGO, but that there should be access to the rehabilitation should the family and the person choose to have that access.
That's great. Thank you so much. Audra, again, we are so grateful for your time and for your generosity, and also for sharing this wonderful story of Worldwide Hearing Foundation International. And we continue to follow all of the great work that you're doing, and are always so impressed. So we'll let you get back to it, to all that important work you're doing, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, so between Audra and Errita, I think there is nothing left to do than to go to ingeniousplus.ca and to please start working on your submission for our deadline, which is February 22nd of 2024. So coming up in just a few weeks, there's still lots of time to go. If you have an idea, if you have a passion, if you have any kind of curiosity as to how you can make an impact and make the world better for innovation, please join us on this incredible journey. And like I said, the next great Canadian innovator could be you. Thank you so much for being here with us, for joining us today. I know Jesse, who's been working hard behind the scenes to make this a seamless enterprise, has done a great job. So thanks again, Jesse. Thank you to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants for hosting us and continuing to be such great partners. And yeah, this is another one in the bank. Look at us.
Another one in the bank. What a fantastic broadcast. Big thank you to our audience, all our speakers. Jill, you said it all already. Again, ingeniousplus.ca. We'll share this with all our registered classes. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you all in February. And get ready for that deadline, too. You can find out more about that there. Have a wonderful rest of the day.